guys, please don't forget to subscribe. A lot of you guys, you check us out and you don't end up subscribing. We'd appreciate a sub. Means a lot to us. UFC 314, probably our favorite card of the year so far. Not even close.
Yeah, we were very hyped about it leading into it, and it really came through. It was fantastic. Prelims all the way through the main event.
Amanda Nunes announced in the Hall of Fame. She's well deserving. Is Ronda Rousey the only other woman in the Hall of Fame right now?
Joanna is also. So she's the third woman in the UFC.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Joanna Jacek deserves it as well. Valentina can't be far behind at some point, too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, shout out to Amanda. She did say she's coming back. To the camera while she was being inducted. She also had a cameo in the press conference. Mm-hmm. I guarantee for Kayla Harris to win, because that's a fight that, people want to see. That would bring her back. I don't know if people are as excited about the Pena. Obviously Amanda is the A side either way, but the Kayla Harrison fight would be exciting.
Yeah, for sure. You can make it a trilogy fight. Pena does have that one win, but man, Nunes was so dominant in that second fight. You can tell that's really the lesser of the two options. But
absolutely,
we'll see. MMA is, it doesn't always want to work with us. So
and she's been out for a couple of years, so ring rust.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this card before we get in the main card. Is there any prelim fights you want to shout out?
Jim Miller, Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper really put on a clinic. Tough fought decision win. His grappling was tenacious. His striking continues to improve. He just looks so much bigger and stronger and faster than Jim Miller, really. Jim Miller still looked good. He put up a tough fight, but decision win for the young guy.
I'll say two things for him. Jim Miller, I thought he hung real tough. I know Chase, I like the fact that he was somewhat disappointed in his performance. Even though he didn't really have to be, he did great, but it shows you what kind of resolve and what kind of, effort he puts into this and why he's getting better and why he's going to be a star. Yeah. But I won't disagree. I respect the fact he says, I want one of these young bucks next. But man, I was thinking, man, if I was this guy's manager, I'd be like, where's Bobby Green at? I'm trying to keep working our way up with these guys that got names, but not quite contenders yet, and then we'll go from there. We'll talk about get to this main card, but there's a lot of main card is the best example of rare times where certain people have they've had the right fights picked recently, and it's worked out for them. But let's continue on with these prelims.
Yeah. Also shout out the Dan Ige Sean Woodson fight. Woodson was doing really well, and Dan was coming back and hurt him, and then the fight got stopped. It was a bad stoppage from Andrew Glenn. Very bad stoppage, but it's a bummer for both guys. Ige was denied a spectacular finish, possibly, which could catapult him up. And
could have got him bonus money too. You never know.
Right. And Sean Woodson denied the opportunity to come back, and he really just had to survive that round, and he probably was gonna win. Let's get in the main card. Nikita Krylov versus Dominick Reyes.
We were back and forth on this card a little bit last week, and you got this one. I wanted Reyes to win, but I just felt like, again, his fights, the Dustin Jacoby, the Anthony Smith, I felt like they were really picked well for him to kind of work his way back. And although he finished each of those opponents, there was a certain way he fought those fights. I thought he was a little gun shy after his knockouts. I didn't feel that as much here this time. I will say maybe there's still even a few moments. Man, he got like a crisp jab right at one point, right early on Krylov. I was like, whoa, I thought, Mm-hmm. And then, he just ends up catching Krylov, knocks him out, TKO. I don't know if it's TKO or KO, but, finished in the first round. Super impressive. It was the performance he needed. I think you might have been a little bit right, too, with Krylov being inactive. I'm sure that didn't help him. Krylov was also lunging. But whatever the case was, Dominick Reyes, this is what I was just talking about here, like what I like to see with Chase. Like, he had the right fights to get him back into contention. I always like to do this, especially after a pay-per-view. For him, I'd like to see him fight Khalil Roundtree next. I like to see when Khalil comes back. I like to see them too. And, maybe the winner of that will be able to slide into an opportunity for a light heavyweight championship. We got a new champion, but I think he is going to fight Alex Pereira again. But also, too, I like one other person, even though some people might think it's silly, Jan Blachowicz, who did stop him, and they already fought and knocked him out. You're on this comeback trail. Jan Blachowicz, even though he's coming off a loss, but he has a draw with the champion. You want to be the best in the world, let's run it back. If you're ever going to run it back, this would be the time to run back that fight, and let's see how Dominic does in that one. And what a story it would be, too, if he comes back and beats Jan. Then I remember it's like, he just got a title shot.
Hill and Roundtree are still matched up. They changed.
Oh, right.
I can't remember the new date.
That's
but if
right.
he wants
You're
to
right.
wait for that, I don't know how far down the line that is. But if he wants to wait and fight the winner of that, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also interested in the Jan thing. Dom was saying it's not a comeback. He's reborn or whatever. It's but whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
He looked great. That step back counter. Then the commentary team was comparing it to the Conor and Aldo knockout, which it was very similar if you watch it back. Even the hammer fist finishes at the end, but it was beautiful. I do think, like you said, Krylov was lunging in there. Might have had a little bit to do with the ring rust, but Dom did what he needed to do. 3 straight finishes after a very, very rough streak in his career. So I'm excited to watch the guy fight, and I'm glad he's doing well. Very happy to see him doing well. Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull.
Yair, I mean, what a great performance. I thought Pitbull, maybe a victim of the UFC jinx, that debut. He looked a little frozen to me at different times. I thought towards the end and the final round, it looked like he was stepping up a little bit to me, but overall, Yair's quickness really seemed to be the difference on this night. I wouldn't write Pitbull off yet. I think that, I'm interested to see some more fights with him in the UFC and how he is getting later in his career, though, so it will be interesting to see how this goes for him. But I like this performance by Yair. As far as next fights go, to me, you're going one of two directions. Either he's fighting the new champ because there's not, a ton of top contenders that Alexander hasn't fought already, or Diego Lopes, who's coming off the loss, but they had that confrontation at the press conference prior. It would have been a perfect world if Diego had won the title, but that's not what happened. But I still think that's a money fight you could do.
People really just couldn't deal with Yair's range, it felt like. He is 37, but Yair is just arguably the toughest fighter to prepare for. He's like trying to prepare for Wonder Boy. He's one of one. Very good at maintaining distance, and he's so good at that kicking range with his kicks. Very creative, very powerful, and he also fought very intelligently to keep that distance, even running away at some point. So great performance by him. Bummer for Pitbull. Pitbull did say he was not injured and he would like to fight at International Fight Week, so you could get him on there. I don't know who he fights, but Yair, I'm with you. I want to see the Diego Lopes thing. They had that beef. Both guys are very exciting fighters, so that's a main event fight, I think, if you ask me. So,
did you pick Pitbull in this?
No. Yeah, I picked Yair by decision.
I was like, okay, because I know we had disagreed on a few of them, and I know the next one we disagreed on, but I think kind of opposite. Like, I was happy the one you got right. I think you're happy the one I got right.
Yeah, let's get into it. Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva.
John Silva, I was very impressed by this performance. Not only, I knew the striking would be there, but man, not only to avoid the takedowns from Bryce, but to win a lot of these scrambles. And then to ultimately end up, submit him. I mean, he passed out. Mitchell ended up. Well, actually, he did tap out too, didn't he? He tapped out and then he
tapped and went out immediately.
Yeah. Great performance by Silva. Star-making performance in a lot of ways. But here's the thing. He's in an interesting position too, right? Because he wasn't, this was the highest ranked fighter he's ever fought. I know he's already looking for a title shot. I think he'd like to get the momentum, and I get it. But I think he's going to have to fight another top contender, maybe 2 more top contenders. I don't know. Again, a lot of times I try to fight for these guys' careers, like Chase Hooper, Bobby Green. This might not be that case, but I have so much confidence in him, and I'd really like to see him against another wrestler. I'd like to see how he does. And I think Aljamain Sterling, coming off a loss, but is ranked a few notches higher than him, that would be a fun fight, given Aljamain's weird kind of style, not just with the wrestling, but the striking, and Silva's kind of unique. It could be a boring fight, it could be a fun fight, but I think it's a great match for Silva, and I'd like to see what he does with somebody like Sterling. Yeah,
so we got that ninja choke in round 2, but he was also really close to getting that guillotine in the first round. Bryce wiggled out of it, but this is what I wanted to happen, but obviously it's not what I thought was going to happen.
Right.
I thought Bryce's grappling would be much more of an issue, so Silva's a real problem for the division. He's super strong and explosive everywhere, where we see now. Plus, he's also a great character. He does that weird thing where he hangs on the cage and he's barking, and he did the thing where, obviously there's that great shot. I always think back to that Ali shot where he's standing over Foreman or Frazier.
I've been listening. I'm not sure.
One of those guys. And then now we just saw the picture. I'm sure you've seen it. Silva standing over the top of Bryce, who's unconscious, and he's barking in his face. So
yeah.
I think he's a future champ for sure. So He's a fun guy. Love the Fighting Nerds camp. They just can't be stopped right now.
No, they can't. Super impressive. Yeah, again, this was another really feel-good moment on this card for me.
Yeah, for sure. Bryce is not hurt. Whatever your feelings about him, he's gonna get back in there. He's still a talented fighter. Maybe not the best person, maybe the most ignorant person in the UFC, but he is still a good fighter. So he's be
still
around.
Gonna be, he's not getting cut or anything. This guy's still an elite fighter. I mean, he doesn't give a shit what the rest of the world thinks. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Moving on, co-main event here: Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. What a fight!
Yeah. This is one we both picked Pimblett, but I don't think either one of us saw necessarily going like this.
No,
I thought for sure he was going to take some punishment, and other than a few maybe leg kicks, and I think he got taken down one point. That was about it. And even when he got taken down, I thought Pimblett was doing better off his back. I just
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I was super impressed. And the logic afterwards, too, when Paddy talked about how, Charles wasn't able, to submit him right away. And, he took some punishments, so I thought, why not go for some ground and pound? And then, of course, he did that. He beat him up. And then he ended up, getting the submission. So I just think this was a star-making performance for Paddy, much like Silva. But Paddy's now, basically, I feel like at another level. There's so many potential fights for Paddy. I like the Dustin Poirier fight. I love Dustin, but Paddy loses, so be it. That's where he is. Dustin goes on top. That's great. If Paddy wins, well, then it's Dustin, putting over the next superstar on the way out. Justin Gaethje, that could be a fun fight. Charles Oliveira, I can't believe I'm saying this because I never would have thought I liked the matchup at all. Like Charles would just walk through him. But now I really like the style matchup given the way that Paddy handled Chandler. So there's a lot of fun fights. What about
Ilya coming up? Ilya's coming up to lightweight. They have
I'm glad you said that.
He threw the hand sanitizer at him. And they had
yes. I'm glad you said that because Luke Thomas had talked about years ago that you don't want that fight for Paddy at that time.
Yeah.
And Ilya would have messed up. And I'm not so sure now either because Ilya and Islam, like these two are like, but I think that is also a potential fight. I hope that Ilya either fights Makhachev for the title and Paddy beats somebody and then you do the fight. I think that you run the risk of it and it's like one of the biggest fights you could do.
You're also knocking off one of your potential superstars before they get to the title. If you do that. So
if it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. But I would take the chance because there's enough build here and fun fights. And there's rumors too that Islam Makhachev might be going up to welterweight possibly.
If Bilal loses, Makhachev will go up. So
right. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of stuff, and I think Max Holloway's next fight is probably going to be at lightweight too. So
I heard it was going to be Dustin and Max. So
that's another. I've heard that too.
Yeah.
So you could also do Max and Paddy. So again, Paddy, congratulations, great performance, and there's no doubt that his next fight is going to be a big money fight. Going to be huge.
Yeah, he was so impressive. I think he needs to fight a top 5 guy just based off how impressive that was. Chandler could probably do 1 or 2 more fights, fun fights, and then he's probably done. Not the best run in the UFC, but all very exciting fights for sure. But tough.
It ain't going to happen, but honestly, you could now more than ever, you could do the Conor fight.